Welcome back, everybody, for another heavy metallurgy review. We're going to be reviewing the new Castle Rat album. I am joined by
the Metal and Beer Snob, Logan. Rick, good to see you.
Thanks to see you, man.
For reaching out about collabing on this. I'm excited to talk about the Bestiary here.
Is it the Bestiary or the Bestiary? It's the Bestiary, right? So
the album on what side of the country you fall on. I don't know.
Well, it hasn't dropped yet, so I haven't heard it. What you call it, communicated verbally. So I'm not sure where to.
I'm sticking with the Bestiary right now. Someone can come in and correct me.
All right, we'll call it Bestiary. So this is a band that's from New York. I think Brooklyn to be exact. So a lot of good stuff coming from there. Bands like Sanhedrin. It's another one that I like, and it's just so this is a band that started out in, I want to say 2019, something like that.
Yep.
And
the archive says
they've been getting a lot of buzz, man. And I wanted to check them out live. They were doing a show with Morgul Blade, but it's sold out because I've heard about all the antics. It kind of makes you question. Is this a shtick band? Are they like Gwar? You know what I mean? Do you go for the spectacle?
That is a conversation that has to be had. Like, I think you have to acknowledge that they are kind of a gimmick band. And that is like one of the main reasons you're going to be like, let me check this out in the first place, is because of the gimmick or the product that they're kind of selling. But I think the music also backs it up as well.
Which is like kind of what we want to get into with this review. And so the new album, like we said, the Bestiary, it drops September 19th. And it's on King Volume Records, which is a label, I believe, out of Santa Fe, New Mexico. And there's two bands I'm familiar with from there, Lord Mountain and Fairy Ring come to mind. But I feel like after this release, like Castle Rat's probably going to be, if not already, one of their biggest bands or prominently known bands on that label. Very cool. They're very entrenched in that doom fantasy with elements of heavy metal kind of thrown in some like Smolder influences, maybe not quite as heavy metal as Smolder, but you wouldn't be too far from that direction, with a little more Sabbath kind of.
I think they end up, at least on this album especially, firmly planting their flag in the we are doom. We're keeping it slower to mid-tempo. There's really only one or two moments where I feel like they kind of pick up the ante and even get into Sabbath-like riffage that you'd hear off of like Master of Reality or something. I think they're squarely in more of the slow and low kind of doom style.
And I love the artwork on this one. It's not too far off from the first one, which is kind of it seemed like more like an aged photograph, which was called Into the Realm. But there's no one which has her kind of on horseback here, which is
not just any horse, by the way. You got the mighty unicorn on the cover.
The mighty unicorn. Yep. It's kind of a trope, right? Like the female, she's got this Red Sonja thing kind of going on. Like Smolder did something kind of similar with this, right?
Yes.
So it's a cool thing. It works in this realm of fantasy, and they bring these antics on stage. So the band actually has quite an interesting name setup. This is headed by, as far as vocals, Riley Pickertay, who goes by the Rat Queen.
Yep.
Bass by the Plague Doctor. Drums goes by the Druid. I don't know if you remember.
There's a theme, yeah.
the Count on guitars. And the Plague Doctor, I did say the Plague Doctor, but there is another member.
Yes,
which is unless you want to fill in
the elusive fifth member on she just does performance. It's the Rat Reaperness, I believe they call her.
The Rat Reaperness, yes.
And she just hops up on stage, very cool garb. Look at her right there, and they kind of have it out, her and the Rat Queen. There's some cool live footage of them, mid-song, kind of going back and forth with, swords and scythes and all kinds of stuff. So I think if anything, this band seems like they want to exist differently in like a live environment and be like a different and
Yes.
more exciting live kind of band. And to me, it seems like they succeed.
This band, like we were saying, they have this thing with the stage presence. They do the costumes and the works. This is kind of why the shtick band thing kind of came to mind. The rat reaperness, I think of like Evelyn from He-Man, or the sorceress from like Willow. It's like they move in that realm, where it's like you can kind of use your imagination. And I feel like this album has those vibes, and I think they really nail it musically by bringing in those vibes and feel. It kind of like when you think of like an army or a battle or these sort of quiet, serene moments between battles, and they have a way of kind of bringing that in. With Rat Castle, like I was saying, they've been making a lot of noise. So with Into the Realm, they've garnered a lot of interest, I think, through their live setup. But from their last album, I can tell there's a lot of room for improvement and progression. And
Yes.
what do you feel about that?
I 100% agree. I did check out their debut, Into the Realm, and I enjoyed it like immediately, but I felt like it didn't do as much to really hook me and make me want to come back to it and revisit it at the end of the year and be like, this is end of year list material.
Yes.
Like, to me, they fell very squarely into a Sabbath worship proto doom band, which there are plenty of those out there right now. I mean,
Yeah.
the only thing that was kind of separating them from the rest, I think, was the gimmick, and that probably did help me check it out initially. But the music, while good, didn't continue to separate the band. But I do think there's been enough growth between Into the Realm and the Bestiary here that they're ready to take the next step, it feels like to me. What are your thoughts?
I think you're right. I felt like there was a lot more obvious Sabbath overtones with the last one, and it could use a more tightening songwriting and a little more distinction. And I feel like they've learned a lot through that, and through their crafts, they've started to really kind of improve with the songwriting. And they didn't shed the what do you call it, the imagery and the whole phenomena with the shtick and everything else, which I think adds to the fun with this band.
Agree.
They love to have fun, and great front woman, great cast of musicians here. And I felt like this second album. So is this a sophomore slump, or do you feel?
I don't think it is. I think they're continuing to improve upon their sound, and they still have that proto doom, almost Sabbath-like sound at their core. But I think they're just adding on other influences and other tricks to make it a little bit more interesting, and I think really flesh out an album. Like,
Yes.
I had a song or two that I would enjoy from Into the Realm, but I think the album as a whole kind of blended together. And here for me, the album has more of a journey-like feel. So I think they've become better at album writing. Another thing for them that I think has helped them kind of propel themselves forward to be in a good position with the Bestiary coming out is this is back-to-back years. So they released Into the Realm in 2024, and now here we are in 2025. So I think they're doing a good job of capitalizing on any momentum. So I feel like as a newer band, it's almost a good thing to be a bit more aggressive with your release schedule, like not make people sick of you, but just make sure that you're not forgotten. And I think Castle Red have kind of done that by, generating some hype initially, but now they're really capitalizing on it.
I think you're right. They're catapulting on the momentum that they've built up, and they're kind of progressing and moving forward, and they're growing from it. They don't sound like they just stick it to a certain template and are comfortable in that zone. And I think that for listeners kind of moving into this for the first time, there's a lot to dive into here. And it's not an overly long album. I would say it's definitely under 50 minutes.
I think it's 48, I believe.
48 minutes or just under, something like that. And just everything about it, besides the visuals, and just obvious influences in here. I think beginning with heavy metal, you can kind of, it's pretty obvious when I pull this up right here.
Yep.
And I think it's pretty cool. It's she takes us to the stage as a kid. Watching heavy metal, knowing there'd be a band like this, I can go and see live. I would have been all over it, man. Just now we
Absolutely.
can.
I think this is indeed a 70s sword and sandal kind of band, like
it is. It's
70s fantasy, which is a cool avenue to kind of dive down.
I'm thinking of like bands like like era Magnum, Chase the Dragon. It's just that visual. Just kind of nailing that theme. They were able to do it with this flavor. But doing it with doom metal. And as far as the album, I feel like other than the Sabbath overtones they had on the previous album, here that's still kind of there. But I feel like especially with Riley's vocals, the Rat Queen, I feel like she's kind of moving in that direction where I don't know if you're a Lucifer fan, but I feel like Johanna, like she kind of has she picked up a lot more of the Soul Tree kind of stuff that she does to add a lot more, which works when the band gets to the more ethereal kind of feel. Again, if you like that first Lucifer album and how doomy that album was, this is a great album. It's kind of like a catapult from that era of the band. I know Lucifer has moved on to a more hard rock kind of approach. Whereas I feel like with this band, while they're still young, Castle Rat, I feel like they've kind of picked up and they added elements that I hear from like other bands like Monolord, with that big riff energy, and they're able to do this with the production to really, really nail it there. You said, what was it, marching or galloping? It was something like that with the way they kind of maneuver. It makes it feel active and live, and there's a lot more energy to it. And I got to give it up to the Druid, the drummer, because he kind of just does that all throughout the album. You just hear that foot pedal at work, and just kind of like this marching beats, like there's this army,
The drummer is my MVP or like the person that I think Riley still has the biggest presence on the album and is probably the MVP of like, that's who you're going to hear the most, and that'll make or break it for you. But the performance from the drummer, I think, really adds a lot to the individual songs and makes the more dramatic and climactic parts really hit and sound as strongly as they do.
I agree. Riley also does double duty, as the rhythm guitarist. It's quite a lot to kind of fill there, But the Count does a really good job, with the lead guitar work, and there isn't a lot of fuzz going on like you typically hear with a lot of these kind of doom bands. You can kind of almost put them in. It'll appeal to the stoner doom crowd too.
It does have that crossover. I agree. It's not just a straight up like doom heavy metal band. I still think there is some stoner energy here.
You won't see one Potleaf.
I always enjoy, but but it's not. Yeah, we're not going Potleaf heavy or.
But it's got
no Bongzilla style
from some of those bands. You mentioned the 70s. I feel like there's Jex Thoth. If you guys are fans of that.
You've mentioned all the bands I have listed. I had Jex Thoth and Lucifer, so we're very much like seeing similar bands. Like, to me, they're capturing on this scene that I really enjoyed around the end of the 2000s, beginning of the 2010s. Castle was a part of it.
Castle's another
one.
They released an album last year.
Yeah,
which was great. Nobody talked about it. That I'm aware of.
I know. Evil Remains, right?
No, with the sound, I hear like keyboards and I think violin throughout this. It's almost like orchestral at times, but I don't see any credits for that. And I don't know why. I guess maybe, I don't know if they brought in session guys or they kind of just did that, with the post edits or what. But I feel like that's another element that may not be brought up a lot, which kind of brought a lot to their sound here.
Those are the tricks that I think they've added, and the way that they've expanded upon their sound and just made it significantly more atmospheric. I think like the atmosphere here is top notch. Like I'm a big fan of the production and the atmosphere it creates, and how it's able to include the string instruments and the keyboards and stuff pretty seamlessly. And I want to give credit to the producer they have, Randall Dunn, who's previously done work with Sun and Wolves in the Throne Room, and even Bjork. So
Bjork.
But his production sounds massive, and honestly, that's one of the biggest step ups I think between Into the Realm to the Bestiary. Is the production is so much more. It's not fully clean, but you know you can just hear everything.
There's
perfectly.
There's a grandiosity, but it's not overly
indulgent. There was a grandiosity that was missing on the debut, and to me, the drum production is my favorite part of it. Actually, the drums sound huge. The bass drums and the toms, especially, really, do a lot of filling up of the sound. When they are being used, which they're used quite a lot throughout the recording. As Rick, you mentioned, the drummer is, one of the highlights for me.
Which I think also adds to the cinematic, I guess, kind of essence to this album. It feels like a bit of a score. They're like you said, mentioned the production. It's almost cinematic in a way, like you're listening to a film as it kind of progresses. You know what I mean? Any fans of Lord of the Rings or anything like that, just anything that involves, choose your fantasy, right?
Yeah.
I mentioned Willow earlier, kind of stuff along those lines. So I think a lot of people will be surprised if they got into the last album, but maybe it just wasn't for them, or maybe not quite, what you call top 10 or top 25 material, but you're still entrenched in doom metal. I think this is a huge leap from where they were before. And I can only see it get it better from there. It's just, but this is something that I've really been enjoying, checking out this promo and kind of just getting into diving into a little bit of the tracks here. It's 13 tracks and there's some interludes, or what you call instrumentals.
I think there's 3 or 4 interludes. So that's, it's a big enough part of the track listing to mention it. That.
Yeah, but it doesn't feel like it's much of an interruption. They're short. And,
I would agree for the most part. Yeah.
And they're different, you don't have these sort of samey things kind of going on. And that's another thing about this album we mentioned earlier was the element of variety this time around. It's like they were taking notes and immediately just kind of improved upon all those little points that I felt like were a bit of the weak points from the previous album. Not to repeat myself too much, but we begin with the Phoenix. The names are all like kind of the tropes you expect in the fantasy realm, right?
It sticks with the Bestiary too. They're all like different animals or like things you'd encounter on like a D&D run or something.
It's an opener that starts instrumental. It kind of like reminds me of something the Monolord would do if they were a little more on the heavy metal side of things. It's even if it's just briefly. It kind of sets the tone for what you're going to get through the album. It's awesome. I don't know when you first hit play or what your thoughts were, if this already felt like it was going to be a different kind of album, or maybe it was just still a little too early to tell.
I would say it did because of the use of the interlude building and kind of setting the stage for you. I knew it was automatically a growth from the last one, which kind of just, you automatically get dropped into Sabbath riffage on here.
Yep.
They make you build to it, and even the Wolf 1, Tooth and Blade, is a bit more of a restrained song, and it kind of builds throughout. Like the riffing is not the hook; it's just something that helps you along the journey of the track.
That first riff is so hooky, though. It has.
I think it builds throughout the song, though, which to me shows that their songwriting has improved.
And already you can already hear that marching drum beat thing going on, right from the first track, which kind of I feel like it adds power to the riffs, on top of it. A lot of energy there. Great opening track. And the thing about this band too is they're not one of those dude bands that they'll put out like 3-4 songs and they're like 10-15 minutes a pop. They will really test your patience. This is structured in a way that's we're talking about 4-5 minutes. I think some are under 4 minutes, 3 something minutes long. So they're very compact, very easy to digest songs to kind of get through. And this album just goes by so fast. It's just so enjoyable, you know. And there's enough variety with the way that they do the song order. We talked about Wolf One. There is a wizard, just called Wizard. Cool vibes. That's when you hear like you begin to hear soft essences in her voice. You can kind of hear, you can tell Riley's progressed. You know, her vocal ability really starts to mature. You know, whereas there was a little bit of that kind of play in the previous album, but it wasn't as developed as it is here. I don't know how much of it was production tricks, but you know,
she's certainly okay with holding a note for longer and like sustaining it and like filling up the whole song with, you know, her vocals versus kind of just sticking with the traditional like verse chorus kind of style with singing. So
I think what you said, you know, with the way you know she does the soft, you know, kind of sounding, but not in a way that sounds weak. It almost adds to the etherealness, and I feel like it kind of puts you in that. It really puts you in that fantasy world. You know, it's just it just works. Siren, more big drum work, marching beats.
I think that might be my favorite song on the album, Siren. To me, it has the perfect balance of where their sound is, with still at the end they kind of bring in a riff that makes me think of The Sword just a little bit. They finally bring in a little bit of speed and a more of a galloping kind of intensity, which I enjoy as this track kind of plays itself out. So
Age of Winter is one of my favorites, you know.
Exactly. It makes me think of it just like the album cover a little bit too, and then on this song especially. So anything that makes me think of that band and that album, as you mentioned,
that's a great song.
Is a highlight. So
I think we move on to what is the longest song after Siren. You know, we're still kind of getting, you know, into that fantasy world, and we're progressing into what it feels like into this realm where this battle is approaching, and we move to Unicorn, which is you know, if the cover didn't make it obvious, there'll be unicorns here, you know.
Right.
And I know what you said. How Riley's able to hold her notes for longer, you know, which what Johanna does very well with a band like Lucifer. You know, it's one of the strong points with that band. You know, she's been taking notes, you know, and developing on her own doing this. You know, I'm not saying she's a clone of what she does, but I feel like there's some influences there, and you can tell that they've been kind of picking up these influences from these older bands, but there's also these newer bands, you know, that's also able to kind of pick up some influence from. More big riffs, man. Again, you know, I'm thinking of like bands that do this. You know, think about the time, you know, you first listened to like Mastodon, you know, for example. It was that big sound, you know, what really drew you in. You know, I feel like, you know, this is not a progressive, I wouldn't quote, band. No. but they carry that big riff energy. You know what I mean? That huge production. It kind of makes it cinematic. I don't know if anything you want to say about Unicorn.
I mean, another good song. I think it's a bit on the slower side, but also does take time to unfold. It's probably a song I'm still digesting, honestly. But it does a good job of just keeping the momentum going as we then progress to another instrumental with Path of the Moss, or another interlude track. But then Crystal Cave, I think, is like the first something new, something exciting kind of highlight of the album that really, you know, does a good job of changing up their sound.
The thing with Path of Moss is, I feel like it's a bit of a halftime show for the album. It's like kind of right in the middle. It's where you get to really hear the lead guitar work at play. You know, because you know, it's slow and melodic. Although it's a very short track, it's another interlude, right? And I feel like it needed a break after that long song. You know, after Unicorn, you know, I feel like this, you know, it felt like it gives you a bit of a rest, and before you move on to like you were saying, Crystal Cave, another very ethereal tune, but still has a very huge sound, more Lucifer vibes. I keep bringing it up, but it just reminds me so much of Joanna.
It's the number one influence, I think, on here. Maybe not even an influence, just the number one band I hear.
I feel like there's a little bit of that, and what's her name? If you know that band, Ruby the Hatchet, they're a Philly band. I feel like there's a little bit of that, those kind of vibes. But with Crystal Cave, I feel like there's some violin here used.
This is the song where it's all orchestral, where it's the violin kind of opens it up in the beginning, and then it just really builds, and then that's when the whole band kind of comes in for the climax of this song. But how they're writing it and how it's progressing is very linear. They're not repeating everything. It's just like you're climbing up a mountain through the peak, and it does a good job of being a crescendo.
I feel like it's a garnet
at the end,
right to the sound. It's not it's not intrusive at all. Like it's like it's not those things where like, oh, I hear violin, I don't like violin, so therefore I'm going to skip this track.
It just fits like to me. Yeah, it just fits. It doesn't feel like they're adding it for the sake of adding it, but it fits the sound that they built. And to me, the fact that the album is so thematic, it just makes sense that there be a violin and an orchestral backdrop for a track like this
on the movie score.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
So this is another highlight for me from the album, just because it's
great track.
Feels so different from the rest.
Serpent. I think we're at Serpent. So Serpent is a mid-paced, doomy track. It has got like a grooving kind of like lead guitar kind of riff. They can do that too. And another one with the galloping. It's all over this album. It's just like that's their sound. That's kind of like gives it this energy, and like this is you're marching towards this evil castle that's out in the distance. You're just making your way, and you're getting there with your army, And by this point, yeah, you start to get to feel what the core part of this sound of this band is, especially if your jumping in point is through the Bestiary. So I don't know if the Serpent was a favorite of yours.
It is another one. I would say it's another high point. I kind of wrote down 4 tracks that I specifically wanted to talk about. This was one of them. You mentioned the lead guitar work. That was one of the highlights. It just has this, like you said, groove. I hear it's like a flamenco kind of sway to it.
Yeah,
making you think of a serpent, as
they do this individual picking thing that he does. It kind of grooves. It's not always just a bunch of thick power chords. And I think with having 2 guitarists really does a lot to kind of enhance the sound and add more richness to it on top of what's already there. There's a second Wolf track, Wolf 2, and it sounds nothing like the first Wolf. This is more of an acoustical.
It is. Thing, it's the acoustic and vocal, I believe. And
acoustical and vocal. But it still has kind of like her voice sound here sounds like it's layered.
Yes.
Almost without fuller, like it's filling up this giant choir echo cathedral or something. It just kind of has those vibes. It kind of puts you in this. It's very softly sung, and it's almost like she sings it in a sort of bard's tale kind of way, if that makes sense. It's a very different stylization than what she typically does with on this anywhere on this album.
With the placement in the track listing, it sounds like it because it's at that like 2/3 of the way through mark. So this is like the eve of the final battle. Everyone's around a campfire. We got one last song or one last discussion before the final.
It's like, imagine it's nighttime. You're on the desert, and you're just putting you're just conjuring up the story of your glory of what this will be.
You're passing the pipe around and stuff. Everyone's
even then
generating some smoke and
like we said, you won't see one pot leaf on anywhere in this album.
I was going to say
huge imagination.
Stoner reference though, but it's medieval stoner doom. So there we go.
Medieval stoner doom, exactly. Whatever that was at the time.
Long leaf.
Dragon. Again, a very haunting tune. Along with more galloping drums, more big tone. All over the place with the guitars, everything. Just you can tell there's the building up to this climax, you know what I mean? And I think with Dragon, it's getting to that point this late in the album. More, it has that early Lucifer vibes again. More of that, the kind of I hear more Sabbath influence, which not a bad thing, you know, with this. I don't know if you feel the same way. The development of this album, with this is how the feel of where they're going with this with Dragon and leading up to this big epic thing.
Yes, I mean, I'll basically just say ditto to what you said. It's not a song I wrote anything about specifically, so it didn't capture my attention as much as the others, but it doesn't take away from, you know, what they're building towards, which comes up pretty soon. I think there's one more interlude we get, Summoning Spell.
Summoning Spell, it kind of reminds me of remember when if you ever watched Labyrinth, you know,
Yes.
when what's her name, was it Sarah, I think, what's her name, the girl, well, you know, when the Goblin King had her in this trance, you know, and she's like kind of just tripping out. It reminds me of that scene, like with what if they had their story here with Castle Rat. It kind of reminds me of where the main character would be in this, where the what do you call it, the rat reaperness, you know, kind of has a hold on her. You're like, oh no, is she in trouble?
This is the will they win, will they lose? Yeah.
I wrote the Evil Queen's Rotten Apples, and I was under a trance. There's a soft, dreamy church choir, you know. It could be the keyboard and stuff added here too that could be adding to that effect and that feel. I don't know if you thought the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not the exact same thing, but it definitely it did build well to the final track.
They went there, you know. It's like, you know, they can go big riff energy and super freaking epic, but
Yes.
also here they can go to that sort of trippy, kind of like just really ethereal and dreamy, you know, with their sound if they want to. And I think with Summoning Spell, the name very appropriate, you know, for how that feels. So what is the last big song, which is another 6 minute and over track, Sun Song.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is the last battle, you know. This is where it all comes down, you know, to a hilt. It's going into that monolord big riff territory for me. I'm thinking also like early Elder, you know.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
long powerful riffs, you know. Or she's allowing herself to be kind of risked away with this tidal wave, you know, just everything. The battle, just the swords are clashing, you know, the shields are up, and you know, it's just like a lot of stuff going on, you know, and you're just caught up in this wave. You know, and it's very appropriate for it being a longer track. I'm glad they chose this as kind of like a last mega song. And who will come out the winner, you know, kind of leaves you wondering. I don't know if you got those vibes.
No, absolutely. This is a very suitable, basically, closer for the album. And as I said, it's, you know, one of my favorite songs in the album, just because it shows them as just good songwriters who've been able to not just create a simple Dooms track, but they're actually creating something that builds throughout its 6-minute runtime. And, you know, once again, it feels like it's climbing to something, and they're doing it with just, you know, them as a band versus bringing in string instruments and stuff. So I tip my hat to them for kind of pulling it off, and I think it helps seal the deal for the album.
I feel like it fits with their look and theme and everything that they're doing. You know, they're able to kind of also sonically, if you've never ever seen them live, they just kind of just pop this thing in, you know, you still kind of feel like there's a sort of story happening, you know, and kind of happens in this sort of with this series of events, these ups and these downs, you know, going all the way through. Ending this with Phoenix, you know, opened with Phoenix and ends with Phoenix 2, and another one that has kind of a soft picked kind of melodies, letting you know that this is the end. They have triumphed. The battle has concluded. Let's all celebrate with like a huge tacular chalice of bloody mead. whatever
Sounds
it
good
is
to me. Yeah.
that you celebrate with. Drink from the skulls of your enemy.
Pour me a flagon, please. Yeah.
However you want to visualize this. Yeah, I feel like this is going to be a big one for a lot of people this year, especially if this is already a genre, that you're kind of
Yes.
have your toes dipped into, so I do plan on picking this up at some point. Like we talked about, it drops Friday, September 19th, and I feel like this is one to definitely not ignore. I feel like it's also because if the first one didn't do as much for you, but you were still left very curious, and they did not disappoint. So definitely, and I love the whole blue look with this, and the whole dreamy going on. So I'm gonna celebrate.
It's a full package.
I got a wild blueberry mojito here, only 5 milligrams to celebrate. This momentous
He's going light today
for this band,
Uh-huh.
which I felt like very appropriate. So thank you for joining us here. So with Heavy Metallurgy, we tend to put out these reviews, and with correspondents like us to come in and let you know what's new, what's happening within underground metal or mainstream metal, whatever we decide. It would be cool to, have you guys check out what's going on with metal. And putting this out with Logan, who has a call to arms.
Yeah. Another album which didn't get the chance to really talk about before it came out, but I think it kind of fits the vibe, but maybe just not in the same serious way. So if you are a fan of stoner doom or stoner rock, desert rock, like a retro 70s kind of vibe, a band that's recently made some waves in like that scene on the Heavy Psych Sounds label is Margarita Witch Cult. And believe me, just the name alone, I was, entranced by. Like, I'll take a margarita, and witches are always welcome, Acid Witch.
You threw this my way. I've never heard of this band, and it's
really?
it's already their second album.
Yes.
And so I checked out their Bandcamp, and their stuff is already selling out. Like where have this been? I feel like I might have seen this band with the previous album, but just completely overlooked it, for some reason or another.
Strung Out in Hell is the name
Strung
of the album. Yeah, which you gotta love it. As you said, it's their second album, and kind of mirroring the Castle Rat way of releasing. Like, I think their debut, self-titled debut, came out in 2023, so they're right on the heels of it, and I think they're doing a lot to capture the sound. Originating in from Birmingham, familiar place for Doom fans,
Sabbath.
Yep. So I think they come from a good pedigree, and to me, if the Castle Rat was maybe a little too serious and a little too thematic, and you wanted something that was just more fun and immediate with the songwriting, this is the album for you, and this is kind of why I wanted to pick it, because I do enjoy a little bit of immediacy sometimes when it comes to checking out this style of music, something where the hook and the song is almost relatively simple, and it's like it's just good times music. You put it on and it immediately clicks with you, and you're automatically bobbing your head to the riffs, and the choruses are already strong. And this is that kind of album. To me, songs immediately kind of stood out, and they do a good way of balancing out like this retro Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats vibe with something a bit more sludgy and abrasive at times, and kind of everything in between. So I think if any of that sounds up your alley, I would definitely check out this band. And
the album clocks in at about 37 minutes.
Mhm.
It's 9 tracks, and I feel like this should be like a light side and dark side to this album, because I felt like the front half of the album was a little lighter. It's almost like they tread on that sort of, like you mentioned Uncle Acid. I also think of bands like that, Alms, ALMS. They had like that Act 1 album, but maybe without all that, maybe not as trippy and psychedelic like that one was. But I kind of feel like there's a bit of that retro vibe with their sound. I also think of all the bands like Purple Hill Witch. One from I believe they're Norwegian, and one I really dug, and I wish we're putting out new stuff. But I got vibes from that band with this, which is why I immediately started to enjoy it. I'm like, oh yeah, it kind of reminds me of, of kind of bands in that kind of direction. It does have a White Wedding cover
which I enjoyed. Rick, you sounded like you were on the fence about it, but man,
it's in
I
the middle
know
of the
about that
album, though.
song.
It's you know, it's in the
Well, you
middle of the
mentioned
album.
that there's like two halves, though, the light and the dark, and to me, that's the middle. That's
I was just
the
gonna say
middle
that. That's
point
the
that
only.
separates it. You know,
That's where I agree. I'm like, all right, if you think of
it
it
makes
like
sense.
that, it makes sense. And it's not. It doesn't sound like Billy Idol. Like it would only
No.
sound like that way if the song's burned in your brain, which it probably is for a lot of you. But because it's such a well-known song, but you know they give it their own character. You know they gave it their own kind of personality into it, which I think is cool. And then when you move to Mars Rover and up, it starts. You can hear the darker overtones of this band,
That's
especially Dig Your Way Out.
my favorite half of the album. That's the one I prefer
Yeah.
because I think Mars Rover has more of a stoner rock kind of vibe to it, maybe because of the song title itself. But then from there, he brings in more of a scream sludge style vocal for Dig Your Way Out and Who Put Bella in the Witch Elm. And I think those two tracks are perfect ways of ending the album. A recommendation, a good call to arms.
The Fool is cool too. It's
yeah,
it kind of has this. It has this kind of
loose, drunk kind of swing.
Yeah, it kind of stands out, but it's still kind of an angry song in a way. And then Who Put Bella in the Witch Elm? I think is how you say it. I almost thought it was an instrumental because it took like about 2 minutes in for the singing to finally start to kick in. You know, so I'm like, all right, so they're gonna end as an instrumental. All right, you know, and then it wasn't an instrumental. But they took some liberties with that. It's the longest track. It makes sense. You know, it's about almost reaching almost 7 minutes. So if you manage to make it that far into the record, I feel like you've already been enjoying it, so you wouldn't mind it.
Yeah, it's my favorite on the album, I think. So
all right,
it succeeds for me, and this might be one that I'll pick up. We'll see about the Castle Rat, but this one I think I will probably end up with.
It's a good one. You know, my only thing is for me to grab a physical of this. It's it's got to find the domestic. You know, but it's heavy like sounds, right? It should not be that hard. It should not be that hard. Margarita
25, so
Strung Out on Hell, Margarita Witch Cult. Interesting new band for me. Thank you for introducing them to me. I had no idea, and definitely check it out. I enjoyed it. Even the White Wedding cover. Believe it or not, I just didn't see that one coming. So thank you all for sticking around and for Heavy Metallurgy. Look forward for more reviews coming up. More stuff on the way. I believe there's a Paradise Lost also in the works, has a new album coming out. So look out for that one. And thank you all for tuning in. Catch you all on the next one for Heavy Metallurgy. Yep. See you all later.
Cheers.
Cheers.